Welcome to Growing Your Firm, brought to you by Jetpack Workflow. We're here to help firms unlock the secrets to help you reach your goals faster. And now, here's your host, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow, David Cristello.
Hey everybody, David Cristello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm. Today's guest is Scotty Scarano, Scotty OKR Scarano, and we're going to talk about what that means and why the letters. I mean, he is the self-titled rapping custodian at Accounting High, but he's also the founder of a accounting firm that does $2 million a year. And he's on a number of various product boards for innovative tech companies across the industry. To give you maybe a flavor of Scotty, which we're going to dig into here in a second, I saw a accounting rap video on LinkedIn. We went back and forth on the comments, and now he's here. And then, obviously, I know you're on Blitz podcast, so I've known a little bit about your journey. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun today. But Scotty, first off, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's cool.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all my guests, which is, how's the rap career going?
Oh, well, my career is just getting started. I don't know where it goes from here. I just started doing it last year. So this is all still very new to me. I wouldn't say it's a career yet. I would say it's a glorified hobby, but it's been so much fun doing it. I've always wanted to do this my whole life. So regardless, like what anybody thinks, I've always wanted to be an accountant, but I also always wanted to be an entertainer, a rapper. So those kind of are blending together now. And I'm starting to learn what that means.
Okay. So if I ever come across somebody that's, hey kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? "Oh, I want to be a rapper." Okay. Good news. Start an accounting firm first, build some cash flow, then rap full time.
Then do that after. Well, isn't that the dream anyway? When you're financially free, then you can go do what your dream. Because if I started out I don't know if you mentioned I was on Blake's show, but if I started out trying to just pursue the rap thing and not have any money and try to make money doing that, that would have been a struggle. It would have not survived, I don't think. So I think getting the money right, growing my firm, getting that to the right place, and then doing this, obviously in hindsight, seems much more stable. Who knows what's next?
Yeah. Well, so you're over a decade in of running a firm. Help us understand. Let's go back to, we'll jump around here a little bit today, but pageantnc.com is the site of the president of Pageant NC. Been doing that for, it looks like almost 14 years. I mentioned you're at 2 million today. What kind of, is that generating enough profit for you to go? I mean, it sounds like you're rapping a lot. You have a glorified hobby, as you said, but it's very tech. So I guess help us understand.
The rap's not very profitable. The firm is very profitable.
Not yet. Not yet. NFTs. Yeah. So on 2 million, what does that look like? Like, are you still trying to grow it, or you're like 2 million's perfect, like it's perfect lifestyle?
Well, I rounded up. All right. It's not quite 2 million, but it's easier on LinkedIn to do that than to put 1.6 or 1.7. So I'm not quite 2 million, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty profitable. It's, I've got to the point where we only have, so the makeup of the firm, we got 5 people in the US. 2 of them don't even do any client work. They're just sort of client management and team management operations, so to speak, and, our client success manager. And then we have 4 full-time equivalents in the Philippines that make up all the production is pretty much happening there. And then everybody here, my CPAs here are the client-facing team. So with that, I'm able to still pump out pretty profitable firm. They don't need me anymore. And that was sort of by design. It took a long time to get there, but that's sort of what we do. We do taxes. We do basic cash basis bookkeeping year round. We have about 105 clients on a monthly price that we cover everything for. And it's all about the relationship with the client now. And as long as we're keeping up with that, all of our clients are happy. We don't really lose clients unless they kind of go out of business or they shut down or something else, whatever happens, whatever that might be. But, it's not like we're heavy growing either. So my team is happy. with the way things are. They're not really growth mode. So, I personally want them to grow personally and continue to grow. So they're growing and finding their hobbies too outside of just work. And I think that's the growth that we've seen over the past couple of years. We haven't seen much top line growth at all because it's just sort of attrition now. And everybody's stable, everybody's happy, and that's how they like it. When I was in the firm, I was in growth mode. When I was still, doing sales and I was still heading everything up, it was always about the growth. Now I'm not trying to grow the firm. I'm trying to grow an audience. I'm trying to grow something entirely different. So I'm content with where it's at. I'm happy with where it's at. And now I get to pursue my passions.
I love that. Well, when you were in growth mode or even today, what drove that growth? Was it were you really well known in a niche? Was it the geography you were in, or what drove that client acquisition?
Great question. Yeah, great question. So it wasn't an industry niche. It was sort of a technology niche. Early on, like 2012, 2013, we went into the cloud and we found Zero, and we found that people were finding us through Zero's directory. So we went all in on that and made sure that we showed up everywhere in the US, and we were even getting clients from overseas finding us. So it wasn't geographic at all because we were spread out, but we sort of became one of the Zero advisors. So anybody that, went on the Zero directory, there weren't that many firms on the directory at the time. So we got our pick of clients. Clients would find us and say, well, my accountant will only use QuickBooks and I want to use Zero. So I'm going to switch accountants. And they would find us. Same thing kind of happened with Gusto too, Gusto's directory back when it was Zen Payroll and then Gusto. And so we would get a lot of inbound leads just by putting our sign up on the different directories. We also got a lot of inbound leads through Google too, but we weren't growing through like any type of acquisitions or any, we didn't really pay for the growth anywhere. When I say we went all in, we were just putting our sign up, making sure that we showed up in different places in the directory, but we weren't really spending any money on that. And I just spent a whole lot of time handling all the inbound leads and the sales. So I would give everybody proposals, and it led to a lot of all the growing pains that you see in any firm. That's what we were dealing with for the last, for all the years of growth. Back when I took over the firm, when I started at the firm, we were basically at like 90,000. That was top line. And
What do
throughout,
you mean? Did you buy the firm, or what do you mean?
yeah. So I started working there back in like 2009, 2010, and it was one single owner running a practice hired me to help him phase out. So I worked there for 5 years and I bought it from him after 5 years. So we grew it from about 90,000 to about 500,000 in those 5 years. And then I bought it from him, and then I turned that in from 500 to like 1.2 million in a year and a half, maybe a couple years. And then I got stuck at 1.2 million for about 6 years, 5 years. So that was an inflection point too. But yeah, I didn't start it from scratch, but it was just a one man show kind of before that.
What did you learn at 1.2 million? What did you need to overcome at that inflection point?
Ooh, myself. I
Okay.
was getting in the way of everything. I had to get out of the way. I didn't really know that at the time. I just kept bumping my head. I kept hitting the ceiling. The
Like, what's an example?
I always wanted to change things. And every time I changed something, it would break something else. I lost people. We were growing. We weren't really growing that fast because every time we took something on, something else broke, or we would lose something else, or we would do the things that we shouldn't have been doing. I definitely lost a lot of people. We always had people problems. And I think that's what attributed to the attrition because, we'd take on some new clients and then we'd lose a person and we couldn't figure out how to handle all the work. And then we'd lose some clients in the meantime. And it was just a steady cycle of me getting in the way. And I was micromanaging things. I would have to review everything before it went out. So I was causing bottlenecks all across the board. I was the bottleneck in getting returns out the door or getting proposals out the door or finishing up this project or that project because I needed to be in it because I thought the client needed me. Everything was, I thought I was the end of it. It was me, me, me. I was in the way. And it wasn't until COVID that I experienced how it could be if I was not there. And that's because I was in Mexico during the early stages of COVID. And while I'm doing everything I can to try to fix the firm and fix this and fix that, I realized me getting out of the way is what pretty much fixed everything. Fixed my mindset, it fixed the team's mindset, it fixed a lot of the problems. And I could go a lot deeper, but that's the end of it all was me. And I was in the way of us growing.
So during this time in Mexico, it's COVID. You have this space to reflect. You realize that you're the problem, you're the bottleneck. From that vantage point, did you need to bring in new team members that were more seasoned at managing or operations, or did you realize you had the right team and you needed to push decisions down to them, or you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
needed to stop
So
giving
great
them?
question. It wasn't anything new. It was we had everything we needed, and I started to see that. And also I we started to get rid of the things that we didn't need too. So it was a lot of addition by subtraction. We did hire a couple new people on those early stages as I phased myself out. I was still in sales, but I wasn't reviewing any returns at that point, and I trusted the team. It was about trust. They trusted me, but if I didn't trust them fully, that's where things kind of went wrong, and that's when I started to trust them. And it was through a couple of key moments that I learned I could trust them, or I should trust them more than I thought I did. And that was after we had hired a couple of people early in COVID. We started losing money a little bit further down because I didn't turn up the degree on sales that much, and we didn't grow if I wasn't pulling in a lot of new clients. So we made the hard decision that we had to let a couple people go, and it was my team that took that on. They actually handled letting the people go, and they took that very hard. One of them got physically sick from the process, and he was always like in ready to be that second in command. He's my operations manager now. He's been with me for 12, 13 years now. So that was the moment that I realized I don't need to be involved in all this stuff. It was always my goal to be in that visionary seat. We've been doing EOS for about 6 or 7 years now. I see a lot of orange books behind you, so I'm assuming maybe one or two of those is
I'm
EOS
familiar with it.
traction.
I don't know if it's back there, but I'm familiar with the book.
Sure, yeah. So, and that was we had sort of a coach that was helping us implement it and set that up, and it was always my objective to be just in the visionary seat. And he's my integrator, and I shouldn't be held accountable for any of the things that happen below that visionary seat, but I never took that to heart until I realized how to trust them and how to actually hold people accountable instead of actually doing anything for them, holding them accountable. And that was that was the moment that I became the visionary. And it wasn't until about a year later that I fully got out of everything. But that was sort of that moment where, okay, they really don't need me. And I felt guilty too. And that early onset and that early stages of getting out of the work that I was doing that I wasn't doing, I felt guilty that, well, I'm making more money now than I was while I was doing the work, and I'm not doing anything, or I felt like I wasn't doing anything. And so that made me feel really guilty. Like, should I be giving everybody big raises because now they're handling everything and now I'm making more money? And so there was just a lot of feelings that I never really experienced before. And I worked, it's over time, obviously, like I worked my way through all that, but I needed to also occupy my time and do something and move something forward. So that's when I started the podcast, which was Sons of CPAs before it became Accounting High. But that's always been my goal, is to try to bring something to a new generation and show a perspective of the profession that people didn't see. So I've got a whiteboard here that I wrote, what are the most important problems in the accounting and tax field, and what can we do to solve them? And it was the pipeline problem that really seemed like the biggest one, or just the perception of the industry as a whole, because accountants tend to be seen as boring. So that was sort of why I started doing the podcast. I needed something to occupy my time. I had a lot of free time, and so I just started interviewing people and talking about different things. I had a co-host early on, and we just had a lot of fun. It was just about having fun and doing some fun things, and it kind of evolved. I say Sons of CPAs were like the middle school years, and Accounting High is like our high school years, and we're in the sophomore year of that. So I've been doing the podcast now for over 2 years now. I think we started early 2021. We started recording.
Well, to get to this point, you mentioned that you learned how to hold your team accountable. So what's an example of during that transition phase? Like, I think we can understand, like, you would do the review or you would step in and do the work. But like, what were you more KPI driven? You're like, well, you either hit this or you don't hit. It's a yes, no. Or I guess what are examples of holding them accountable?
Yeah. Well, we tried to find leading indicators to track. So within EOS, there's a scorecard that we look at every week. And I tried to fill that up with leading indicators, things that I know if they are doing those things, then we shouldn't have to look at the lag. We shouldn't have to look at some of these other KPIs that we had. So a lot of
So
them
what do
were
you
like number of client meetings a week were one of the metrics that we tracked. Time slept is one of the metrics that I was tracking, at least for me too, because that I know that was a big input into any other output that I had for anything I needed to do. So I encouraged them to start tracking habits and things like that. But within our scorecard, one of them was client meetings. And that's the focus on the relationship. And if we are consistently meeting with the clients, so I looked at there's a lot of different things that we could be measuring, number of returns done, work and output and all that. But we looked at the client meetings, and that seemed to be one of the metrics that was number one, easy to track, but also that leads to better satisfaction. That leads to more satisfaction with work too, because now they're starting to see the impact they're having with clients too. The more they focus on meeting with them and keeping that relationship in tune, then they find other opportunities to help them. So it just overall strengthens our business.
And when you say hold them
Yeah.
accountable, like, were they responsible for making sure? So I don't know. You close out the month. You make sure that there's a meeting with a client, and holding them accountable means you've reached out to the client, you've booked a meeting, it's on the calendar, something like that. Is that the full line of holding them accountable?
Yeah, I mean, they gotta track that on their sheet too, so everybody has their own sheet that rolls up into the one that I would see. So if somebody didn't fill any of that in, that's that right there is an issue. We need to look into that, but I think holding them accountable also meant that I wasn't micromanaging anything, or I wasn't over reviewing anything too. So trusting them that things were get trust but verify was something that we would always say. Trust it, but then look through that scorecard to make sure things were getting done. So it was the things that I wasn't doing that I was able to hold them. I mean, the accountability factor, it's a very hard thing. Like some of the things that we track, it's elusive because people lie, or people do and say things. So it's more of their actions and the things that it's all the outputs. So it's collectively, the more I remove myself, the more they stepped up, and I would see those kind of things happen where things wouldn't fall through the cracks because they knew I wasn't looking over their shoulder, and they
Yep.
knew this had to get done, and everything got done. It was just all the things that I thought that if I turned my back, they wouldn't get done, they were getting done better. That just happens with trust. When you trust people, they know it, and they don't want to let you down, especially if it goes both ways too, and mutual respect. I consider all my team my friends. Most people look down upon that. Like, employees can't be your friends, your clients can't be your friends. I see everybody as a friend. So, they I don't want to let them down just as much as they don't want to let me down.
Hey, growing a firm community, David here. Just want to share a quick note about Jetpack Workflow, our accounting workflow software. Now, for almost a decade, we've helped 5,000 plus accountants, bookkeepers, and firm owners use Jetpack Workflow to better organize accounting workflows, automate recurring tasks, and easily track and monitor client work. Never miss a deadline again. Stop using messy Post-it notes, generic tools, legacy systems, or spreadsheets to handle workflows, and bring sanity to your client work. Now head on over to jetpackworkflow.com. That's jetpackworkflow.com to get started with a 14-day free trial or schedule a one-on-one demo with us. All right, now let's get back to the show. You mentioned that you got a lot of clarity from subtracting things, from elimination during this time. So what are some things that you either said no to or you just cut altogether?
Oh God, I got a whole rap on saying no. That's literally the title of the latest track. Yeah, it's hard for accountants to say no. It's really hard to do that because I mean, I wanted every opportunity, and everything that comes forward is like a potential opportunity, especially with potential new clients. Well, we haven't done this before, but they're going to be paying us 20 grand. So we'll figure it out. We can do this. Yeah, sure. Those kind of things.
Was that
Saying no.
number one? Like, was that a number one problem? Is like client a little outside of our wheelhouse, but they're gonna give us a lot of money, so we're gonna say yes, and then it would just wreak havoc for months.
That was a problem. That was always a problem. I don't know if it was the number one problem. I think it was knowing what types of clients to take on and knowing when to say this is not a good fit. And it wasn't me that was doing that. It was my ops manager who started doing it when I stepped away. And still, every time I poked my head in, and this is while I was not fully in operations in the firm at all. And I would go in and say, why didn't we take this on? This would have been an easy, 5 grand if we just took this on. Yeah, but this is not in our wheelhouse. We shouldn't do it. And I let them make those decisions. So it was easier for him to say no to things because he wasn't directly, he was directly seeing how it impacted the team. And, it was easier to strictly follow those guidelines. I was a people pleaser and I always wanted to say yes. Anyway, if somebody came to me with a problem, I wanted to solve it.
So, are you in? Do you spend any time on your firm now?
Not really. I still feel kind of guilty about that. Maybe like, you know, we have these stand up meetings every day and I'll pop in a couple times a week for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but most of the time I'm sharing them my new raps and sharing the stuff that I've been doing and keeping them entertained and all that. Like I don't really look I mean, when if it ever turns into anything firm related, I kind of just tune it out at this point, unless they need me to approve something or I don't know. I mean, it's only like money spending that I'm typically the bottleneck for because
How often do
yeah.
you have any? Like an EOS, they call it like a same page meeting, like you and your
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
So, are
Fridays.
you meeting monthly with him then too?
Fridays. Yeah, every
Right.
Friday we'll have a chat. We have an hour on the calendar, and usually I'll take it on my walk or something. I'll call him up, and we'll just talk for an hour, just to stay on the same page. It's the same page. SPM is what we call it. Same page meeting. And a lot of times I'm still just talking about the podcast stuff or my raps. If there is anything that needs to bring me up to speed on, that's when it typically happens. Or if there's any serious thing that we need to talk about. But it's been on autopilot and I'm kind of waiting for something to happen for the next like phase of this because the first time I lose somebody really important, that's when I'm going to have to make a decision on can I continue to keep this going. So this is still in a lot of ways, I don't know too many people that are running a firm like I am because a lot of times people hit a point where they sell it or they do something and I haven't hit that point yet where I've had to think about that because that's my cash machine. This is how I'm making my income. And I got 3 kids and a wife that is home with the kids. So I gotta, I can't just be toying around my raps all the time. I gotta be making money. So I'm at that stage now where I don't push too hard on anything at the firm. If I want us to take on something new or I want to take on a new software, they need to make that decision. So we haven't really adapted that much. I mean, we're already, pretty far ahead as far as like automations go and outsourcing and all of that, that I think we're good until like I finally say, okay, now we're going to need to switch over to this, or maybe we need to start using QuickBooks more because Zero's kind of fallen off. I think that's the next thing is we might need to start taking on some QuickBooks clients because
Oh no, what happened? I mean, you literally. I want to get into QuickBooks Zero, but as a side note, one of the questions I have,
yeah,
you're running this firm, it's on autopilot. We've interviewed a few firm owners that kind of get to that place, and then I circle up with them 6 months, a year later. They're like, "Oh, I sold it," like and then they're doing something else. So, like, I guess what stops you from selling it at this point?
I like the cash flow. I
Yeah.
if I sell it, then it's really going to push me into a situation where I have to make money on doing something else, and I'm really going to have to take this accounting high seriously and turn it into something that can actually produce income, or the rap thing a little more seriously, where I can turn that into a career. But for now, I'm kind of happy treating that as like a hobby and not needing to make any money off of it. And also, I think it gives me a lot of credibility that I'm
Yeah.
running a firm and I can talk about running a firm. I mean, the book that we're writing is called How to Rap, and that's how to run a practice or how to run an accounting practice. And so that's supposed to tie into running an accounting practice. And if I sell it, then I can't really talk about running it.
I heard there is something like psychologically unsettling. Like when you come into a windfall of cash, you're used to getting money every month, and then, well, granted, you could have dividends and distributions against cash, but it's different. You're used to that's in my investment account, and like I don't want to pull down on it, and there's just something strange. If you, I don't know, if you're sub whatever age of just not having an income. It kind of puts you back into fight or flight mode, even if it's not the reality of your financial situation.
Oh, dude, definitely. Absolutely. And definitely a mindset. I mean, my dad he has a software company too, similar to you in the accounting space. And he's so unwilling to sell it. He just got an offer from 2 to 4 million to sell sell their business. And he wants to keep working. I don't understand that because honestly, like, I I probably, again, it would force me to take something else seriously enough to turn it into a business because I'm a born hustler. I always want to hustle. I always want to earn, and I don't want to sit still. So I know that's what will happen. Definitely. Like that fight or flight. Well, the lions will be chasing me after I sell my firm, and I'll need to figure out a way to fend them off or to tame them and then turn it into a circus, which is kind of what I'm doing.
As you think about, do you think the firm will ever go back into growth mode? Like, would you incentivize your ops manager to grow it in some way? Like, set kind of growth goals?
I mean, they are incentivized now because they are handling sales and they have they get a commission and a basis on they get 10% of any new annual new revenue. All new revenue they get 10% of, and that they're very motivated, but they're also comfortable. And so I don't see that happening. And I know that it's not going to be unless something changes or I put somebody else in charge, it's not going to ever be in heavy growth mode. And
Yeah.
that, it doesn't sit well with me when I think about it and sit there and think about it. But then if I put it in perspective, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Well, it all comes down to those leading indicators, right? If you have a good service with happy clients and then just have this great annuity stream that's highly profitable. Okay. And you're managing the metrics, you're working on the firm. Sounds like 2 hours a week ish, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
About
you're
that.
you're keeping a pulse on everything, and you're running just it's an enduring evergreen product, so barring any sort of mass client exodus, then it's fantastic, and you've set up the leading metrics to know if things start to look like there's an exodus, you might come in a little bit more, have more meetings with your ops manager, I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think it would force him to put his back against the wall if there was an exodus. He would actually come through because that's the kind of difference in us is I'm the wartime CEO, he's the peacetime. I despise peacetime. I can't stand it. So I look to make problems and make things more exciting, so to speak, in general terms. I like it when there's chaos. I thrive on chaos. So I create the chaos and now I'm doing it in other places and not in the practice.
yeah, yeah. Well, in this whiteboard next to you, you said talent was a problem and you wanted to make it more relatable, human, personable, fun, right? And that's your journey into podcasts, into rapping, which we'll get into links of how people can check out your
Yeah,
your
for
your
sure.
video. What else was on that whiteboard?
The option to do a podcast for potential clients or for potential people to enter the profession, like for accountants. And then prices on airlines and my daughter's phone number because I couldn't remember that. That's what's on it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go into
We don't need to talk about
um
the prices for airlines because that was actually just one trip and I never erased it on there.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
my
yeah.
daughter's phone number. I don't think anybody needs that.
Yeah, yeah, we'll leave that off the air. That's fine. I guess we'll close out with talking a little bit about you started traveling. I saw you rap at some conferences. I guess what's been your take on the next generation? It seems like people are maybe excited by this accounting rapping thing, and you're getting invited. But
Yeah, yeah.
like,
So
what's your pulse on this world right now?
it's a great question. Initially, so the first big performance I did was Scaling New Heights. And oh man, was I pumped up about this. I was on main stage. I came on after a camel basically. And I wrote a brand new like rap parody of a track and it was like I made a music video for it in Vegas. You might have seen it, and it was awesome. And nobody stood up out of 2,000, almost 2,000 people there. Nobody stood up, and it was like I was pumped up on stage and everything, and that was pretty much what I should expect from a room full of accountants that we're not expecting that. Nobody wanted to be the first person to stand up in the first place. Like, no, everybody's conscious about what everybody else is looking at, and I don't want to be the first person to stand up because then I'll look weird. That's that's one mindset, but also like this is really different too. And it was, I mean, for me, I've been working on this all year, and this was like June, I think, at the end of June. And similar things happened until like one of the events that I went to, we did an event where people were actually drinking and they're getting a little loose. And that was the best performance I had because it wasn't like in the morning or in a conference setting. So it's all about the setting and the tone. But what I am noticing is those that are at around my age, elder millennial and younger, are really into it. And like, tell like the impact that I'm having and what I'm hearing from people as I'm off stage later on at the conference, people coming up to me and telling me I'm inspiring them to do this or that, different things, maybe not rapping. But I'm learning too that the older generation, they like it, but they don't get it. They typically don't like rap to begin with. So they're like, oh wow, I like what you're doing. I love what you're talking about. I could relate to it, but I'm not really into the rap, right? So that's why at Randy's I tried to do Chili Peppers. I was like trying to see if I could bridge the gap between rap and rock at the Bridging the Gap conference at the Trimerit one, and that was fun. But still, it's got like 300 views on YouTube. Like, it's not like these things are gonna be going crazy, blowing up.
Yeah.
But I'm having a ton of fun doing it, and I'm trying to still fuel that energy and bring something forward. But I know that it's resonating with a younger group because this is what speaks to them. Hip hop is the number one. Hip hop is what rock was when we were growing up, or before us, before our time. So I'm starting to see that it's starting to take on, but I'm not expecting that much anymore. I did something really impactful at Bot Keepers Conference where I wrote one specifically for their event, and I referenced things that happened at the event. And this was the last thing that came on, and it was at a party where people were drinking and people were really into it. So I'm starting to see that tumbleweed go through. And like, I just did one at Disney or at Orlando for Western CPE, and it was the tax accountants anthem in a room full of tax accountants getting their CPE, and they were really into it. So it's like these kind of things. It's starting to tumble, or the snowball is starting to
Yeah.
grow too.
Must be at after party, must have drinks.
Yeah, yeah. I got to have somebody introduce me. I had John Garrett introduce me on stage at the Bot Keeper one and take me off stage, and that really helped, get the crowd going and stuff. So,
Yeah.
it's just things that I'm learning. This is what I want to do now. This is like my life. I'm going to Costa Rica next weekend to do ayahuasca, and so I'm looking for some more direction and some more purpose into my next phase in this whole career. I don't know what that means. I don't know where I'm going or what I'm doing because I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just learning how to rap.
Well, I love the idea of setting the stage, and I could just even imagine being in that room at Scaling New Heights. You come on, it's not a party, there's not drinks, and they're like, "This is enjoyable. What am I supposed to do? Should I stand up?" I don't see anybody standing up. Like there's many people that a rap concert, let alone have been to a music concert, probably in the last 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, I just for myself, it's been forever since I've been, so it's like, oh wait a second, what do I do here? What
Yeah,
am I?
yeah. Well, you don't know.
But
Well,
if you have somebody out and they get everybody to stand up and have a little bit of fun and loosen up, I mean, it makes the world. This is why at weddings they always play that cha cha song, right? It's just like somebody
mm,
you need to, everybody knows how to like follow directions over the microphone, and it loosens you up a little bit. And so like you need your like intro, you need like the cha
dude, I
cha
got to
version.
do a parody of the cha cha. That's what I got to do. But you know what got the most laughs and the most applause was when I explained OKR. So at the end of the rap, it was OKR, OK rapper. That's what the OKR stands for. And that got a lot of laughs. People like that. So a little self-deprecating stuff here and there. But
Good stuff.
OKR is obviously objectives and key results was what people would see if they've ever seen that acronym. So
Yeah.
I just took a play on that.
I love it. I love it. Scotty, if our audience wants to reach out, connect with you, watch your videos, what's the best way for them to do so?
check out Accounting High TV on YouTube. We need more subscribers there. I've got like 5 podcasts now. You saw the social studies one. That was the new intro I did for that. So we just launched 5 new shows. You can, if you search for Accounting High in any of the podcast players, there's our one main feed that comes out every Sunday. And then each day of the week, there's a different show at Accounting High, one of the hallways at the school, or one of the courses at the school. You can catch on to any of that, anything that piques your interest there.
Scotty, it's been a real treat. Thanks for coming on. If people wanted to grab takeaways from today's show, you can always go to jetpackworkflow.com/blog. That's jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We'll link up your videos, the site, some key takeaways. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave a review. And if you heard something that was just a light bulb for you, maybe Scotty talking about how he needed to step away and that allowed the firm to breathe and to kind of grow again, well, let us know. Reach out to Scotty, let him know, and share it with a fellow firm owner that might need to hear something we talked about today. Scotty, it's been a real treat. Thanks for coming on.
Dope, thanks.
Thank you for joining Growing Your Firm, the podcast series for global, small, and medium-sized businesses ready to scale and increase profits. You can check out more podcasts by following the links in the show notes, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. At Jetpack Workflow, we're all about maximizing returns for accounting firms and CPAs. Check out more podcasts on growing your firm and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.